And we are back. Another week of P&B College Football, P&B Betting, episode 11 already. Mr. Paisley, we're here, Halloween, the end of October, November, right on the horizon here as we go into week 10 already. How's it going?
It's going good. Had a good weekend. Pretty solid on the picks. Finally had a good weekend in college football, so hoping to keep the momentum going. But yeah, we say it every episode, but flying by here and getting close to Halloween here. Got Thanksgiving coming up, so yeah, only a couple weeks left.
Yeah, and college football playoff too will be first one will be out as well for next week for us to break down. So it comes out right after this week, so will be interesting. This is our recap. Mr. Paisley, as you said, a pretty nice week there, 9-6. Nice to see some green on the board for you. Then I as well went 500. Of course, it's been 50% kind of year for us as a page. Jared was able to get us a notch above 500 as we went 15-12 as a page, 10-8 now throughout the season on locks, kind of dwindled down from a very hot start. I think we were 7-0 or something, but nonetheless, still 56%. And overall, just a nod above 50 now with 121 wins and 118 losses. We also did not hit our parlay last week. I believe, Jared, BYU won a game. Could be wrong there, but nope. They did win that game. BYU did win. But anyway, yeah, what are your thoughts here of the week just as a whole here on the betting slate of week 9?
Yeah, that was the only blemish that I really hated after the weekend was that UCF pick. You were right once again, as you always are. A lot of people tell you BYU, the big victory. Still, I think they could be in for some unlucky bounces and stuff. I think they played really well. This was one of their most impressive games against UCF, but we'll break them down a little bit later. And Big 12's crazy, so I wouldn't pencil them in as an undefeated team in the playoffs. So still some work to do for BYU, but yeah, I was really close to putting my lock on the first half over Notre Dame Navy, which has been a lot of times in the last couple of weeks where I've been between two picks for a lock, and I always seem to pick the one that loses. So I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that over cashed nice and easy, and then the over 70, which was a large number in the Texas State Tulane game that we gave out. You can only find that on the podcast here if you listen. So some Texas State being a nice over team. We might be touching on Tulane later in the show, but those are some nice fun overs that I cashed early in the day.
Yeah. No, it was a great call on that pick. My over did not hit a Florida State Miami, but my lock hit, I got Oregon laying the 22 against Illinois. That was a nice win. And Nebraska with 28.5 almost won that game outright. We'll get to those games here in a moment. But yeah, just another week in the books. Not bad, above 500. We're always happy about that. And we'll get into it here this week as well. And stay tuned at the end of the show. Me and Jared will release some preliminary picks for the week, and then as well as our parlay of the week at the end. So week 9 recap. I guess we could just kind of kick things off. Last week, was it a Friday night game? Boise State and UNLV. Boise State getting the win there, 29-24, but really a big win for them to keep their playoff hopes alive. And the group of 5 they have an early loss to Oregon from September, but really since then they've kind of been the odds-on favorite to represent the group of 5. And if they continue to win, they probably will be. But close one with UNLV. Their Heisman finalist Gentry of Boise State had a pretty good game, but he didn't break a big run, which was the first time I think this season where he didn't have a huge one, but it was enough to win. And he was really the reason they were able to milk out the clock in the final drive. And they get the win 29-24 over a pretty tough UNLV team.
Yeah, this was a fun one. Late on night Friday, 2 of the best teams in the G5. Big win for Boise State. I like just how they won the game. Like you said, Gentry didn't really get going on the ground. They were trying to get him going early, and they were bottling him up. Got to give UNLV credit. So then I was really impressed with the quarterback. Some doubts about him. There was a little bit of competition going into the year. He won the job. Nothing flashy with him. Nice pocket passer, and he could scramble a little bit. And he made some big-time throws, which I don't think he was asked to do early on in the year with them running for 200, 250 yards a game. So they get that play out of the quarterback, mix it in with the run game, could be a very dangerous offense. And the defense looked good, like we talked about. I think we were both, or I was just on Boise State going into that game, and the pass rush got after UNLV. UNLV started fast, but then Boise kind of controlled the rest of the game. So really impressive win for Boise State, how they did it. I think if they want to compete, they should get to the playoff. Lots of still play out, of course. But if they get to the playoff, I think the defense got to shore up the back end a little bit. They give up some big chunk plays, which may be a good passing team. But if they get the right matchup, they're a team that doesn't slow down the run, kind of play their style, Boise State, they can maybe make some noise, maybe have an upset. So I think they're a legit team. They are very, very good. Probably will be maybe in the top 15, top 12 at the end of the year.
Right. And we'll see next week too with the playoff where they are at the beginning of the standing, because obviously I think that's more important for the group of five of where the college football playoff sees them, because they are more reliant on those playoff rankings. Just because if you win the conference, it's not a guarantee, because you're going to have, five group of five champions. So any of those five really will be eligible to be the highest ranked team, but that's just how it works. And Boise State, definitely probably will be there next week. They're probably going to be the favorite in every game from now to the end of the year. But nonetheless, big win for them. They needed it. And I think they're a good team. Also, shout out to Carson. I know he's a big Boise State fan. Glad they got the win for you. Hopefully they're in the college football playoff. Would be exciting, and get another crack at Oregon maybe from September. So anyway, Boise State, big win there, 29-24. Notre Dame, Mr. Paisley, pretty good this past week. Once again, they've been exceeding, I think, some expectations since that heartbreaking loss at the beginning of the season. And another blowout win over Navy. They look good. I mean, that's just the easiest way to just put it. I mean, Navy was a disaster in the first half. They had multiple turnovers, muff punts, multiple fumbles. I think I just had it on the quad screen there on YouTube TV, and it seemed like every time I looked, the ball was on the ground. I mean, Navy, the ball was just all over the place. Notre Dame didn't have any problems, and they get a huge win over at the time, ranked Navy. Now, they still have to get through Army, as we know, the powerhouse of Army for Notre Dame before we could start, talking about playoff again. But it seems to me, as a non-Notre Dame fan, unlike you, that Notre Dame is probably going to get in. I mean, I don't see them losing any games moving forward. I don't know, unless you have other thoughts. Obviously, every game matters. It could happen, and I didn't think they'd lose to NIU, but I don't know. This was a big win over Navy, 51-14, and really, I can't see where they're going to screw up here, but unless you tell me otherwise.
Just when they make you think that, though, they'll have a way to surprise you. But
possibly,
they look good. I mean, they're playing some really good ball, like we highlighted. I just like this matchup for Notre Dame. Like I said, I took Navy early in the week, cashed that out. Just didn't feel confident about it. I think Army does match up better against Notre Dame. We'll get to that game in a couple weeks. But, I really like the Notre Dame offense. That's why I took the first half over, and I thought Navy would get some offense as well, both sort over the first half and full game totals. So, Notre Dame's offense looked really good, moving the ball, running the ball effectively. They were just a lot more physical, outweighed the small Navy D lines. They're able to run the ball, and Notre Dame's a really good running team. So, again, if they get the right matchups down the line here that don't want to stop the run, it's hard to stop Notre Dame with the Riley Leonard running like that. Now he's starting to pass a little bit better. Receivers are getting a little bit more acclimated, showing some bursts and some chunk plays down the field. So really like what I'm seeing of the Notre Dame offense the last couple of games. The defense continues to be really solid and really good. So, fingers crossed every week with them. Never too confident. Fortunate with 4 or 5 turnovers, I think. 4 of them were in the first half or something. It was pretty crazy to see that, and they jumped out to a big lead. And just some to keep in mind, Notre Dame has been ahead in a lot of these games the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I haven't really seen them play from a negative game script since their bye a couple weeks ago. So just going to be interesting if the team could just keep it close with them to see how this team presses. But, if they keep blowing out teams like this, I'll be fine with that going forward.
It's a nice problem not to have if they could continue to get out to early leads. You might as well worry about it down the road in the playoff when it matters. But, it's an open field, as we said in previous podcasts. It seems like every time there's a clear-cut top team, something goes wrong. We thought that of Georgia. We thought that of Texas, and, then Texas ends up losing to Georgia with obviously the Alabama loss. Now Oregon's atop of the charts. So, I don't know. It seems like a lot of these teams could be beatable. And in an open field year, a team like Notre Dame really will benefit with the 12-team playoff because they don't really need to worry about what goes on around them. They just need to keep controlling their games, and I think they'll be in it. The way it's shaping up, I'm starting to think they'll be in it. I think there was a chance at 11-1 that they wouldn't get in, but at this point, with the SEC beating each other up, just some of the there's no clear two teams in the Big 12. There's not a third team in the ACC. It just feels like there's going to be enough open slots for Notre Dame, and if they keep winning, and we'll get to A&M obviously in a bit with their big win, but obviously, if you're Notre Dame, you just want to keep rooting for A&M as well. Hopefully they continue to win. They continue to look good. And at the end, it's subjective. It's a committee and, it's a ranking. There's no magic formula. So obviously if A&M keeps winning, that win will look good. And Notre Dame should be there at the end.
Yeah, it's a great point with A&M. And that's Notre Dame's best ally right now. It's going to be interesting to see, like you said, with the rankings coming out on election night, I feel like too, on Tuesday, right? I think they're coming out. So going to be a crazy night if you're following both the politics and sports there. But yeah, and with Notre Dame too, they're probably not a team, if they get into the playoff, you probably don't want to play them because they're going to be that probably 10, 11, maybe 12 seed, depending on the group of five turns out. So they're probably going to play a higher ranked team. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for that team if they get to play Notre Dame because they're kind of peaking right now at a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Notre Dame, big win over Navy. We'll see what happens with them moving forward. BYU, we'll go with them here next. Paisley, you are on UCF, and I said a week ago I just couldn't quite understand the UCF, not you personally, but the spread. It was BYU was getting points. I was like, is this too good to be true? I didn't quite understand. I don't think BYU's some powerhouse, but they did enough. They actually did better than I thought. They kind of controlled this whole game. I just said squeak it out. I don't care how they win. But BYU looked good, and they're still unbeaten, and they still seem to be like either them or Iowa State could be the TCU type of team from a couple of years ago, making that playoff run. Big win over Central Florida here, Jared. What went wrong for UCF?
Yeah, it was mostly the UCF defense. Hand up, just a terrible call. We said it last week before the pod. I think we said one of us has to win if we both pick the opposite side. So unfortunately, I was on the losing end, but. I was more impressed with BYU's offense. I mean, they just came out of the gates. I think they went up 14-0, and then UCF is another team that likes to play from ahead. They have a good run game, so if they get behind, they're not really great throwing the ball. But not that I was envisioning that game state, but the UCF defense just couldn't get a stop in the first half. This score probably could have been a lot worse than what it turned out to be. So really impressed with the BYU offense. I'm still not sold on their defense, but their offense could really carry them, and the quarterback's playing fantastic right now for BYU. So I'm thinking there's going to be some regression. They still have a couple coin flips left to the year. I mean, we could talk about a bunch of teams up at the top, but I don't know if BYU is the number 8, 9 team in the country. We talked about it last week. Good performance, but I still kind of think that. So I think they should be more in the teens. But again, it's just the way college football's shaken up this year with how many losses. They're undefeated, so you got to rank them high. But I think if you're looking for that elite team or some team to make some noise in the playoffs, I just don't see with BYU. I think they could lose another game, maybe 2, maybe lose 1 the regular season, lose in the Big 12 championship. So I might see this team on the outside looking in with the playoffs, but they've improved me wrong all year, so we'll keep an eye on BYU.
Yeah, and that at the end of the day, the ranking really doesn't mean a whole lot for them because if the winner of that conference gets that bye, and right. I think that's going to shape up to be a huge game, whether it be BYU and Iowa State or not, which it feels like it is. But if one of them do stumble, you do have Kansas State and Colorado right there with only 1 loss. So, I don't know how the whole tiebreakers would work. And I don't know who plays who at this point here with, 5-6 weeks left. But, the Big 12 game is going to be huge. It'd be almost be like a playoff game. I mean, there's a chance the loser is not even in the playoff, which would be hard to imagine. But especially if one of those teams has 1 loss, then it's like you're not getting in with 2 losses. So, whoever said the 12-team playoff would take the fun week in, week out, I think is definitely wrong at this point. It seems more exciting than ever with all the, the craziness, and a lot of fan bases are still in it. But yeah, big win for BYU to stay unbeaten in a game where people picked them to lose. Vegas was not on them. So as an underdog, BYU stays unbeaten. And, from here on out, they control their own destiny, no doubt about it. So good for them. Big win for BYU. Now to the SEC, Alabama, big win over Missouri, and not a big win competitive-wise, but just a blowout win, 34-0. Missouri's just dead at this point. No pulse, no heartbeat. They are preseasoned like top 6 or 7. They were so high. Everybody with them and Tik Tok Kiffin said, watch out in the SEC. Ole Miss is dead, and so is now Missouri. 34-0. I guess they had some guys out and they, banged up and just did not play well, but just nothing going for them. Alabama gets the shutout, really a must-win situation for Alabama because they were probably on life support also going into this one. But Alabama gets it done. They get a big win over Missouri, 34-0.
Yeah, nice little bounce back for Alabama, getting back on track. I was just surprised they held them to a bagel, held Missouri to 0. Brady Cook was injured. I didn't think he was going to play, and then the line kept moving. He did end up playing, but he was a shell of himself, and I think they took him out, put Drew Pine in, and it was just a mess. So just an absolute dumpster fire right now in Missouri there. I mean, you can't be that reliant on one player. Like, Brady Cook is really good, but when he goes down, the whole team just shuts down. There's just nothing they could do. The defense, not as good as we thought. So, yeah, keep your eye on Alabama. They got a good one coming up next week, I think, at LSU. So that would be a nice another test to see where Alabama's at. But I was going to make a comment of the Big 12, but I was going to make about every conference. I feel like except for the ACC, you look at the Big 10, SEC, Big 12, they're kind of all for grabs right now with 5-6 teams in the mix, not even like 2 or 3. So, can Alabama get their mojo back and be one of those teams in the SEC with a couple of teams now have 1 losses? So I thought it was just going to be the Big 12 was going to be chaos. It's kind of looking case like all these conferences are going to be some chaos here down the stretch.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of wide open conferences. I mean, there's definitely 6 teams in it for the SEC, the Big 10. 4 or 5 probably. No, it is going to be chaotic here coming down to the stretch. And I don't know. I mean, a team like Alabama, who I think preseason when everybody thought that they would, be in it, and Missouri too, it turns out that both of these teams, are not the front runners, but then you have even the top of the standings lose as well, like with Georgia and Texas. So I think everybody now has multiple losses except for Texas A&M, who just has the non-conference loss to Notre Dame, and they took care of business here, which is coming up with the big win for them over LSU. So it's going to be exciting, a ton of things. And, there's going to be a heck of a lot of teams, I think, that end up missing the playoffs that right now are like, man, they were in prime position just to get in. But, there's probably 15, 16 teams that we can name that are probably playoff caliber, maybe not national championship type, but just playoff caliber, top 12, who we think could get in. And there's going to be a heck of a lot of teams that end up missing just because there's not enough spots. And SEC, like 6 teams right there, Big 10, 6 teams, that's 12 right there. I mean, you have Indiana. Who would have thought Indiana in November 1st or October, whatever it is, would be where they're at, unbeaten, chance to, really, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but really, you can't count them out not to win the Big 10. I mean, yeah. I don't think they will. I think you have Oregon. I think, even though I hate, I think Ryan Day is a clown. You have Ohio State, Penn State's unbeaten. We'll see what happens with them this week. But Indiana, they control their own destiny. They could arguably lose a game and get there to the Big 10 championship. I think that's unlikely, but there's a chance. Good point there. And Alabama, Missouri, interesting. Very close SEC.
Yeah, I think just big picture and kind of talk about every game we talk about here in the preview too. There's not a lot of great teams. I think we might have mentioned this last week, kind of a college basketball field where you go into the tournament and there could be 10 to 12 teams that could win it. Like, there's no dominant team emerging here. So it's going to be a lot better games to watch, but kind of harder to bet, honestly. I think that's why it's been so up and down in college football, because these teams are changing like week to week. So, Alabama looks terrible one week. Now they're back. They look bad against LSU. Like, your opinions keep changing. I feel like we don't know some of these teams that were in week 10 already. So it's just crazy year, but very fun and a lot of info to digest.
Yeah, it goes right into the next one too. Texas escaping Vanderbilt 27-24, battle of the SEC. I mean, Texas right there. Gets a dangerously close game with Vanderbilt. I mean, Vandy once again just showing that they're a really good team. They're able to hang in here. I don't think I really ever felt like they were going to win this game, but they did have a couple of opportunities in the fourth quarter to win the game, take the lead, get the ball back. It just never kind of came to reality, but they were right there in this game. I think Texas is really lucky here to escape, because that would have been brutal for them just where they were 2 weeks ago to, if they were not to finish this one. But they get the win. But Vanderbilt, once again, I think just really defying some expectations this year, and clearly have a very good program right now.
Yeah, another great game. Didn't get the win, but that's what we called last week with the big numbers. Sometimes you got to just bet these teams and their style of play, and keeping it within the number of 18.5. You're right. Texas controlled most of the game, just couldn't really get outside like 2 touchdowns and really take control of this game. And honestly, the Vandy quarterback was a little banged up last week. He was banged up this week. He's going to be banged up going forward. And when he can't use his legs, he's a completely different quarterback. So you're right. I think the Texas got really lucky. If he's fully healthy and a couple other guys are healthy, this could have been a loss by Texas here. But yeah, like we said, I think a lot of these top teams just have some glaring holes. And I think for Texas, it's now this O-line is looking a little shaky. Like we mentioned, the weapons on the outside without Brooks. If he's not healthy, what do we get in the receivers? We knew the running backs were a little hit or miss, and you have the QB controversy going on with Ewers. Looked a little bit better, definitely more comfortable than the Georgia game. And then their defense looking a little leaky in spots. So, yeah, like even this Texas team, we thought when they beat Michigan early on in the year and they were number 1, and we're like, no, this is the clear-cut team. They have not a lot of holes. Now they have a lot of holes. So, going to be interesting to see. But, yeah, Texas, maybe not that top 3 team, top 2 team like we thought, maybe more in that top 5, 6 range. But, yeah, another nice close loss for Vandy there covering the number.
Yeah, and quick side note too, it's a disgrace right now that Missouri is ranked 25th and Vanderbilt is not ranked. I would take Vanderbilt, I think, any day of the week at this point. I think they're better. I think they're more hungry. Missouri, like I said, has already been killed. So anyway, quick side note, I just saw this on a couple hours ago. I was looking at the rankings and I just couldn't quite grasp that that Vandy is lower on the standings than Missouri. But anyway, doesn't matter. Vandy takes control of the rest. They'll be in a good spot. They'll get a good bowl game. Good story for them, for Vanderbilt. All right. So coming out of a couple more games here, Penn State gets the win against Wisconsin. Off to a slow start again. It seems like week in and week out, they're just kind of slow out of the gates. But they get going. I never really felt like they were endangered to lose this game, even though they were down 10 to 7.5. It still kind of felt like they were going to kind of pull it out in the second half. Aller not returning due to a leg injury, and Bo Prabula able to get the running game going and got the big win, 28-13. Second half was pretty much all them once they got the running game. But obviously, big one here against Ohio State coming up, which we'll preview in the second half. But what did you see, Mr. Paisley, in this one of Penn State's second half to get over Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think you're right. We've seen this a couple of times where they get off these slow starts. Aller's playing good. I actually like how he's been playing this year. But, yeah, for some reason, you just can't get out to a lead or really control the game early. Defense played really well in the second half, highlighted by that pick 6. It was looking a little dicey there. I mean, you had Aller go out. He also lost a nice key defensive player. I think it was the D-end. They lost for the game there. So it was looking a little dicey. They make the quarterback change. First series was okay. And then that's when Wisconsin got the ball. And then right after that pick 6, then the offense for Penn State started to get going a little bit. Kind of opened up the run game a little bit with that backup. I can't pronounce his last name, so I should call him the backup for now. But he really is really good in that read option, making some good reads. And then he was throwing the ball great. I mean, I was really impressed with some of the throws he was making. To come in cold off the bench like that with a very close game. It's not like he came in when they were up 2-3 touchdowns. So it was a tough spot for him. And for him to come out and throw like that, I mean, I was joking with another Penn State fan, and I'm like, if he could play like that going forward, if Aller's not going to be there, they'll be just fine. I mean, they'll be winning these games by double digits. So I think he does add a little run element that Aller doesn't really provide with the Kolnicki offense that I think suits him a little bit better. But we'll break this down later in the Ohio State matchup. But it's almost like, is he maybe better for this Ohio State matchup? But we'll get to that. But, yeah, Wisconsin, again, prime opportunity. I mean, you couldn't have things go your way more. I mean, they were looking good. A couple injuries on the Penn State side. You're at home with the lead. and then just that brutal mistake in the end, and then had a couple more mistakes. Just couldn't. I don't think they had a score in the second half. I think they were bageled in the second half there. So, yeah, tough break for Wisconsin again. Tough for the fan base there late in the game. But another big squeaking out win for Penn State to stay undefeated.
Yeah. Wisconsin kicked a field goal in the second half, but that was it. Outscored 21-3 in the second half. But yeah, the pick six ended the game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. When it was because Wisconsin was in the lead at that point, and they threw the pick six to make it 14-10 Penn State, and then they got the ball back. Wisconsin kicked the field goal, made it 14-13. But once Prabula got the running game going, it was pretty much over. Going up 21-13, I felt pretty confident. But yeah, I mean, he played well. I think Aller's been playing great. I think I was worried right when he went out. I thought we were going to get an Iowa 2021 all over again, where they brought in the backup when they were undefeated and the guy couldn't snap the ball. Shout out to Taquan Roberson there. Anyway, I think
backup was a little better than that guy.
Yeah, no, Prabula is. I mean, he's light years ahead. He could play at. He could start at most. I think schools around the country. I really do think he could transfer and start. I think that they wanted to keep him happy. They involved in the offense. He's been involved in the offense. They bring him in occasionally on different packages. And I don't want to take too much time on this, but yeah, Kotelnicki, I think you're right. This running quarterback style kind of suits him a little bit better. And it did open up the run game. So we'll see what happens with them moving forward. It's a little bit up in the air at this point. But yeah, they got the win. They look good in the second half, and obviously have the big showdown this week. So that's being said, Texas A&M also flip-flopping on some quarterbacks, gets the win over LSU, could not score early. LSU looked like they were in prime position to get the huge win, and then later in that game also backup comes in and just LSU had no response, and A&M ends up winning handily late here in the fourth quarter of this one. Jared, you were on Brian Kelly this week, which was very, very rare. Did not pan out for you. What happened in this one? I mean, A&M's been such a weird team. They did not play well against Notre Dame. They make the quarterback change, then they make the quarterback change again, and they're in such a weird spot. It seems like maybe now they finally have it straightened out. They're winning games though, and they look good this week once again in the second half.
Yeah, start with Texas A&M. I mean, yeah, this quarterback situation is wild. This was not because of injury related too. This was just because of play, and they went to Marcel Reed, more their runner, and LSU had no answers. I mean, they didn't prepare for him. You're not expecting that, and they were hitting the read option. He was reading plays beautifully. Probably had over 100 yards rushing, a couple touchdowns. So just completely changed the game once he came in the game. But you're right. He came in after the Florida game, played a couple more games, but then he couldn't throw the ball. So they benched him for Wegman. Wegman came in against Missouri, put up 38 points. And then now Wegman this is just flip-flopping back and forth. But defense was looking good. Got gashed a little bit, but I trust Elko on that side of the ball. This could be another team that's peaking at the right time if they could just get the quarterback settled. But I mean, yeah, it's another scary team. Probably don't want to play them. And we called this way back that this team is going to get better as the season goes on. And then, yeah, to the LSU side, I think, honestly, LSU fans probably love me if I'm betting against the team. And then if I bet on them, they should get scared because I just can't get a read on this team. I don't know. This 3 weeks in a row. I bet against them the last 2 weeks. They beat me and they look good. And the 1 week I bet them, they look good early. I mean, they had nice plays, but then they did have another QB injury to themselves. Nussmeier got the ankle banged up a little bit and was just very immobile. But then some of his throws are even way off, even with the injury. Brian Kelly can't win another big game on the road, but he can win all the small games like at Arkansas when he's a favorite. So I think that's definitely a trend to keep in mind where Brian Kelly wins the games he should, and he does not win the games he shouldn't. Big-time games, prime-time games. Just looked a little bit outclassed there. The defense held up for most of it, and then it was just a quarterback change. So I don't want to be too hard on Kelly and the coaching staff because it was kind of hard to predict that with the backup QB who was completely different coming in. But this LSU team, man, I just cannot get a read on them. So I don't know what to think of them the rest of the year.
Right. Yeah. And at this point, A&M's in prime position too, to be a contender here. On top of the SEC, they could even stumble. I don't have their schedule right in front of me, but they look like they're certainly in a chance to win the SEC. Obviously, they have to get through and they'll have a championship game, but did not lose yet. They get over a couple hurdles here, and now just most recently LSU. So good for them. Way to bounce back after that week one where I really just did not believe in them at all. And I remember early in the season, I picked Florida a chance to beat them.
Yeah.
And Florida was bad. Now Florida's all of a sudden playing pretty well. So, but anyway, A&M completely different team right now, looking good and top of the SEC standings.
Yeah, I just think going forward too, that backup Reed, Marcel Reed, who came in, is the better option. I think they should just stick with him the rest of the year. Honestly,
that's what they need. They do need to stick with somebody at this point. And hopefully it is Marcel Reed, because you can't keep flip flopping. You're not gonna. You might win a couple games and squeak it out, but by the time you get to the playoff, I mean, you can't be all over the place. You know, that's the time to have a plan and stick to it. You're not gonna beat Oregon. You're not gonna beat the rival Texas. We'll see at the end of the year what happens there, but if they keep doing that, at some point it will fail. But yeah, A&M top of the SEC right now here at the end of October. All right, next segment, winners and losers of the week. We always pick one winner, me and Jared, from the previous week. Could be anybody, team, player, anything in your mind. So Mr. Paisley, kick it right to you. Who is your winner of week 9?
Yes, I'm going to go to a fun one. Probably not a lot of people knew about or heard. Maybe they did on social media. But I'm going to go Kennesaw State as my winner of the week, beating the Liberty Flames. They were as high as 28 flat, 27.5 point underdogs at home. Got the win. They stormed the field with about 20 people, I think, that were in the stands. It was a great win. They just moved to Division I football last year. And I don't know if they got a win, or this might be their first year, actually. This was their first win. They were 0-6 going into the year, so they stormed the field. Coaching staff was going nuts. So a Liberty team, too, that people remember last year were undefeated, played Oregon in the Tostitos Bowl, if that's what it's called, and got blown out. So, and there was some rumblings that Liberty was even better this year and might go undefeated again and maybe be that team in the playoff. They're just not the same team. And then, to lose outright now to a 0-6 Kennesaw State team. So just got to give Kennesaw State, not sure their mascot, but giving them some love here. They played on Tuesday night, Conference USA. So
that's awesome.
Tuesday night football, getting the first win for the program there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you brought up Kennesaw State, because they are 1-6 now. But yeah, huge win for them last week. Not a lot of people saw that coming. I think we texted each other after it happened. Couldn't believe it. Also, quick side note on Liberty. I'm happy Liberty lost, because I didn't want to be in a spot where Liberty was undefeated. They were undefeated last year, the year before, when they got absolutely wrecked in the
last year.
So that was last year. So we can't have that again. I'm glad that they lost. I'm glad they're officially out of the picture. And Kennesaw State. By the way, I know we're releasing this here Thursday, but right now, Wednesday night, they're losing to Western Kentucky 24-7 here, 2 minutes to go in the second quarter. So, but yeah, good for them. Winner of the week for Mr. Paisley.
They did take Western Kentucky tonight. Even though I love Kennesaw State, I actually was on Kennesaw State. Fun note. Plus, I got them at 24 and I went up to 26. I was so scared to take them because I think they averaged they scored 2 points from the week before, and I took them and they still covered. So, Kennesaw State loved them the week before, but did fade them this week off of the monumental win. But keep an eye on that game.
They have a cool looking logo too, by the way. If
they do.
Somebody doesn't know what it looks like, look it up. It's like a K and like a side of an S. It's all I've seen that logo a few times over the years and never really knew what it was until the last year I looked it up finally. And anyway, good for them. All right, Paisley, I have a good one for you here this week for my winner, at least.
What do we got?
You know who that is on the left side of the screen?
Is that you, Mr. Berger?
That is me. And on the right side of the screen?
Is that a Corvette?
That is a golden Trans Am, actually.
Okay.
That is the car that SMU gave to Eric Dickerson in 1980 scan. So that's a golden Trans Am to represent SMU, might be ACC champions, SMU, and myself. And not to brag, but last week, SMU and myself cashed out on a nice plus 764 parlay, $100, got me 864, which was great. And I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of favorites in there. It was 5 legs, minus 115. I had the over in that Michigan State game that I put out. So that hit. But SMU, all I did was take them on the money line at minus 440. It was the last thing I needed to close out. And they and the Golden Trans Am were able to stop Duke going for 2 points. I've never been that excited for a game, I don't think, yet this year, when Duke lined up for that 2-point conversion to try to win that game. SMU gets the stop. They get the win. And me and SMU and that Golden Trans Am get a huge win. So just had to throw that out there. I wanted to wait for a week till I had a really good record, but even at below 500 last week, as long as I cashed that nice parlay, I'm going to take it as a big win. So that's my winner of the week.
Nice hit on the parlay. Very nice with the SMU getting the huge win. Crazy game if you stayed up to watch that. It wasn't too late at night, but going into overtime there, going for 2 quick. But this will be a great transition to my loser of the week, because we can continue talking about the Duke Blue Devils that I have as my losers. I was on the wrong side, not of a parlay, but I did live bet them when they were I live bet them, and they got one of the 6 turnovers that they got at the end of the game on the 30-yard line with like 2 minutes left, and then I think they ended up kicking a field goal and missing it. But yeah, Duke, I mean, you could not have gotten a more favorable outcome from SMU. I mean, SMU was trying not to win the game. Still impressive that they won the game, of course, for your parlay. But 6 turnovers. Duke had 2 missed field goals, an extra point, and then a 2-point conversion didn't go their way at the end. Could have been a nice win for the Duke program there. That was playing a little bit better than they probably should have. Was undefeated, some faulty scores there. But yeah, just had to throw that out there. That was just one of those where the day was going good, the night not so much. Had a nice money line live in-game bet, and I also had the under before the game started, which was looking good all game, and then with the overtime there and the 2 touchdowns sent it over. So just a bad beat type of the game for me with being on Duke and the under, but I'm glad it helped out some of our other patrons here, and Casey Berger there in the Mustang type Corvette thing car or whatever that is.
The Golden Trans Am. No, that's a good loser, Duke. Not getting. I mean, they did have multiple chances, and I think that's what made that SMU win just so much better, because I almost couldn't believe it that they got that stop to at the end. But yeah, very interesting. And my loser of the week was Oklahoma when they got blown out by Texas because it's a rivalry game. This week, loser is Michigan State, because you have your rival coming in, national championship last year. Michigan's already dead. I pronounced them dead a few weeks ago. And now you had an easy prime opportunity to get a win. Michigan State looked like they were building something. They were winning some games. They just looked a little bit better. I don't think they're great, but just couldn't do anything. They lose. Michigan ends up running all over them, getting the win, and just a disappointment, I think, for Michigan State in a prime spot to get a huge rivalry win for them, and instead they fall over, and Michigan runs over them and gets the win. So disappointing. They're my loser of the week, Michigan State.
Yeah, that was also the last leg of the parlay of our 2-legged underdog. I picked Michigan State. I was going to mention them. I forgot to mention them earlier on the show, but thanks for reminding me. That was a tough one. I was watching that one, and when they missed a 27-yard field goal, and apparently the field goal kicker is really good. When they missed that to put 3 points on the board, go up 3-0, I was like, they're done. They're over. They had a couple of 4th downs late in the game that, like on the 10 and on the 15, they couldn't convert. So, yeah, you're right. And Michigan won the game, but they didn't look that great again, and they probably shouldn't have won that game. So, yeah, Michigan State that could have been a nice program win for them with another coach in their first year, and would cash the parlay for us. But Michigan State Spartans going down, still the little brother it looks like, to the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, they could have used Zach Johnson, Hazleton area star, to make kicking those field goals 27 yards. So unbelievable. All right, Week 10 preview. Got a decent slate of games, obviously, to cap it off with the Penn State-Ohio State game at noon. We'll get to that at the end of the preview. Might as well start here in the SEC. Ole Miss laying 7 here, going on the road at Arkansas. Total 53.5. Arkansas is kind of defying some expectations this year, getting a few big wins. Obviously, they didn't get the win against LSU, but still at home. They have Tik Tok Kiffin coming to town, and Ole Miss, a team that really was playoff caliber, that at this point just doesn't seem to be interested right now in making the college football playoff. Really season on the line here for Ole Miss. I mean, it kind of already is over, but I mean, if they lose this one here, 7-point favorite, you need this one if you're Ole Miss, if you want to take anything from this year.
Yeah, I agree. This was I saw this number at 7. I'm like, this seems a little high. So I was I'm gonna have to dig into it a little bit more. But right, like Ole Miss hasn't looked that impressive. Their defenses look good, and Arkansas same way after that LSU game. I don't know if I could trust them with that offense and how bad they look. So I actually took a piece of the under. It was at 55.5, which is actually a key number, which is some of these numbers we'll talk about later on. But 55 is a big key in college football totals. So took that, moved down to 53.5. I'd probably still play it at 53, but the side, I'm just not sure what to do about it. I think both defenses could have a nice day here, and both offenses could struggle a little bit. I think Ole Miss should win, but I don't know, covering 7 on the road here, that's going to be tough with Tik Tok Kiffin, like you said. So maybe lean Arkansas, but definitely like a nice play on the under here.
Yeah, that is a lot of points. At some point, I feel like Ole Miss has to put this thing together, but until I see that otherwise, you're right. I mean, I would probably lean Arkansas with that amount of points at home to get a big win. Ole Miss just doesn't seem interested. They just have not looked like the team that they could have been with all that talent.
Like we said, with all these teams being viable there's still a bunch of teams, and when you're not one of that teams, it's probably crushing. It's like, damn, like there's all these teams in it. We're not even close yet to the playoffs. Like they would need a lot to break. And I don't even know if they could make it if they went out. So you're right. Like where's their mentality at? Like because their season's kind of over. What are they kind of playing for? Just for a nice bowl game, which is not really what you do at Ole Miss. So yeah, tough one for the Ole Miss program there.
Number 1 in the country, Oregon laying 15, going to Michigan. Total 45.5, pretty low there, probably because Michigan can't score or doesn't have a quarterback. I think their quarterback just retired, by the way, like a week ago, which anyway, quick side note. So anyway, Michigan's kind of in disarray. But anyway, Oregon coming to town, number 1. It seems like every time we get a new number 1, they have not lived up to those expectations. Will Oregon be different here and get the blowout win? I tend to think they'll win this game. They should cover 15. I just have no faith in Michigan. I picked Oregon last week to cover 22 against Illinois. They did. I feel like it could be a similar type of game, but I don't know. Michigan, maybe their name brand is keeping this at 15. They do have to go to Michigan. That's not easy. I mean, I don't want to say that lightly. I get, even if, not a good team, you still have a huge advantage there in college football, making Oregon travel all the way there. But still, it seems like I would probably lean Oregon in this one. Michigan, I just don't know how often they're going to find the end zone here. Total 45.5, Mr. Paisley.
Yeah, just a little bit different spot for Oregon. I think you definitely like them against Illinois. Nice spot at home, but you're right now got to travel. Some of these West Coast teams, these new Big Ten teams, like they're having some trouble traveling this much. And we talked about this in earlier podcasts. And now back on the road, it's easier when you're at home. So, yeah, I just don't really have a play on this one, honestly. I want to. I'd probably lean Oregon with you, too. I just can't take Michigan. Like, again, if you're taking Michigan, you got to hopefully they hold them to 21 or 17 or less. Like, this offense is not putting up numbers. Oregon's peaking at the right time. I mean, this is a team that looked a little shaky early, got better at the Ohio State game, got better last week. This team is peaking. Really nice offense, really taking form. Oregon does have a good secondary. I'm not sure how their run defense is, so maybe not the best matchup against Michigan, but they can even run the ball well. So, but just keep that in mind with Oregon going forward. But yeah, I think Oregon's peaking at the right time. So it does seem like a high number for this matchup, but I'm with you. I think I'd probably lay it before I would take Michigan on the points.
Right. And Oregon, too, a couple weeks ago, coming off that big win against Ohio State. Sometimes you just need that to really spark your offense and spark your team to, make them really believe that they are the best team in the country. And they might be. They also may not be. They might not, you might have Georgia, Texas, and others that might end up being better. Even, we'll see what happens with Ohio State and Penn State this week. But, until I see otherwise with Michigan, I just feel like I would have to lean Oregon. In other words, I probably wouldn't make a play, but I can't pick Michigan at this point. But maybe that's just me there. But, we'll see with them. Also, on Saturday, Florida and number 2, Georgia. Florida, who's now playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season, taking on Georgia in a neutral site game. This one, Georgia is a 16.5-point favorite. So similar to Oregon, Michigan, two different type of teams. Florida's kind of on the rise here of where they're at here at this point of the season, playing well. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, this one's another interesting matchup. Probably lose a little luster than what it was at the beginning of the year. Florida does get a nice bye. I think Georgia might have had a bye last week too, so they finally get to rest a little bit. But Yeah, high number again. I'd actually look to the over maybe a little bit in this one. I think Georgia's offense should get back on track here. I don't believe the Florida defensive hype. I think their offense is actually looking a little bit better, which is why I'd maybe look to them. Their quarterback's a little boomer bust on the Florida side with another younger quarterback. Could run it really well, has a cannon of an arm, but is he really, really good or are you getting the really, really bad side? It's kind of hard to tell. So if he's clicking, this offense could put up some points. So I kind of like that here. I think this Georgia defense just came out with their hair on fire in that Texas game. Like, I don't know if they could repeat that type of intensity and, level of play week in and week out. I feel like that was just a spot specific type thing. So now you get the bye, cool down a little bit. Now at a neutral site game, you don't have the home crowd behind you. So I leaned, this spread was similar to the Tennessee game a couple weeks ago, and I actually took Florida, and then they almost won that game outright. I think Georgia's a lot better than Tennessee, so I'd be a little hesitant laying the 16.5, but you're 100% right. Florida's playing a lot better ball, so it's going to be an interesting game to look at from the Florida perspective and to see if Georgia can get this offense back on track. The defense now looks like it's coming in the form. Can the offense get back on track like it was early in the year? So maybe lean to an over, but kind of staying away from the side on this one. Just want to feel this one out and see how good Georgia or how good Florida really is becoming.
Yeah, that one in Jacksonville too as the neutral site, but yeah, we'll see. Big game for both of these teams. Really, more so Georgia, just if they want to, show where they're at and that they're a serious contender. You don't want to be stuck there playing Florida late in the fourth quarter like they've stuck a few times already with some teams this year. So big opportunity for really both teams, for Florida to really change the narrative on their season and Georgia to continue to show the country that they're a serious contender here after that Alabama fiasco there in that first half. Number 10, Texas A&M. We talked about them already a little bit there in the recap from last week. Going to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. Not an easy place to play. 7:30 p.m. Going to be rocking. I know a couple A&M fans on Twitter I've seen that are pretty nervous here about this game. The spread's only 2.5 here. I think I would lean A&M here, but interested to hear what your thoughts are. Big chance for South Carolina. And this total also pretty low, only at 44.
Yeah, I actually like South Carolina in this spot. I feel like I've been getting burned with this a little bit, taking the unranked team with a low spread at home the last couple of weeks, the most recent being Arkansas. And then you look back and it's like, yeah, LSU's a lot better than why did I take that? So I'm going to dabble again now. I'm going to stick to the formula a little bit, but I just think this is a great spot. Like we talked about, I love Texas A&M going forward. But this is a tough spot after a very emotional win against LSU. They were down a lot in the first half, had a battle back. Now we talk about the quarterback should be in there, but is the coaching staff going to do that? Are they going to stick with him? Are they going to stick with Connor Wigman? So a lot of uncertainties there. So I think you caught LSU with a little bit of surprise, but I don't think South Carolina will be surprised this time. I think their defense is really underrated. I mean, we talked about this in the Alabama game a couple weeks ago. But I think South Carolina's defense is actually pretty legit. So that's why you're seeing a low total. Would maybe lean to the under even at 44. But I like South Carolina's defense to kind of create some havoc with whichever quarterback's playing. They kind of been playing really good, both up front getting pressure. Secondary's been really good. So not a lot of parts to pick apart this South Carolina side. The side they do struggle is on offense. Their offense is a little sluggish. So I think they keep this one, muddy it up a lot after that emotional win at Texas A&M just had. So give me South Carolina here. I like them to keep it close, and I think they could upset them outright. But I think I'll take them plus a 2.5. Would like 3 or 3.5, but we'll take them plus the points, and hopefully don't get burned again with these unranked teams at home here. But it should be a nice atmosphere at 7:30 there in South Carolina.
Yeah, no, that'll be great on TV there and in prime time with that crowd. Okay, well, that is SEC. Also over to the Big Ten now. Former Pac-12 teams here going at it. USC going to Washington, also 7:30 on Saturday. Kind of a disappointment really for both of these teams at this point where we are. USC obviously off to the hot start of the season. Big win over LSU. I think they cracked the top 10 for 1 week or ranked 11th maybe before their couple losses to Michigan, Minnesota, Penn State, and then, of course, Maryland really kind of ended their season. And then on the other side, Washington, college football playoff, near national champion, sitting now at totals 55.5. They lost a few games this year, also kind of disappointing. I don't think we thought they would be the same team that they were, but nonetheless, whenever you make a college football playoff appearance or nonetheless national championship, your expectations are a lot higher. So this time they have USC coming to town. Southern Cal's a slight favorite, 2.5 total. Like I said, 55.5. What do you think in this one?
Yeah, give me the home team again here. Again, a couple points, taking them plus 2.5. Also like the under in this one, which is weird for a USC-Washington matchup. That last year's game, I think, with Penix and Cale Williams had like 90-some points combined. But I just think they're two completely different teams this year. I've been liking this Washington team. I don't know what's about them. I don't know what it is, but I think they're slowly starting to get better too. Like we talk about with some of these new coaches coming in, new roster. It takes a little bit of time to get where they want to be. But I think Washington's a tough place to play. Underrated, I think, up there in the Pacific Northwest. I just like how this Washington team is run the ball, playing defense. I think they match up really good against USC this year. They're really good in the secondary, which is what USC likes to do. They're a very pass-heavy team, can't really run the ball. So I just think Washington matches up good here. I thought this was a little surprising, seeing Washington be the slight underdog. I mean, we just talked about USC losing to Maryland and Minnesota 2 weeks in a row. Like, hey, you're going on the road laying points. I just don't think that's right. And then also I like the under 55.5, another key number that we talk about. And I just think I think USC's defense has improved. If they can't really throw the ball, I think this is going to be a tough game for them. And I think Washington, a little bit of ground and pound team, short passes. So I think they'll keep this clock churning. But yeah, I kind of like Washington and the under, same size unit play there on this one.
Right. Yeah, the line's surprising for me, and I want to take Washington. I think it's kind of two things going on. I think USC has the talent. I mean, I think they're better on a neutral field. I think I like USC. A couple of weeks ago, I think I would take them -5, -6, really to win this game. Obviously, things change, and similar to Ole Miss with USC, is you're kind of like, what are you exactly playing for? How is Lincoln Riley going to respond at this point of the year? And like you said, on the road, I guess the same things could be said about Washington, but I don't know. They're completely kind of, you're right, rebuilt, new players coming in, coach. They're kind of in a spot where they're going up, where USC, it just doesn't feel that way. I don't know. I probably won't bet anything. I think I would lean Washington, honestly, to win this game, kind of surprisingly, because I think USC is better. I think they have – I like Miller Moss. I think their offense could score, but, yeah, until I've seen otherwise, and I can't take them after, those 3-4 losses in a row, Minnesota, Maryland, the worst of them. So I'd probably lean Washington, but really disappointment for USC of where they are at this point. And if they do lose this one, then you're going to have even more questions being asked than there is right now.
Yeah, I think like you said, 2 points. One being that this is a brand new team for Washington, so they're trying to build something, so they might play a little harder. And like you said with Lincoln Riley, like he's been there 3 years now, so like, yeah, our players really buying in. People might be leaving after this year. This Washington team will probably stay intact, and they're looking to build some. And I don't know if people watched that Washington-Indiana game. Indiana did have a backup quarterback, but Washington kind of should have been in that game even more. The final score was a little misleading. I actually did watch that game, and I feel like Washington played really well, and we know how much we respect Indiana. So now you get to come back home after a nice performance that should have been a little bit closer. So I think you're getting a couple points with that final score of Indiana looking a little bit larger than what it maybe should was in the box score.
Down to the ACC, we have a couple of games. Louisville going to Clemson. Clemson kind of the co-front runner at this point with Miami. Clemson laying 11 in this one. Pretty high total, 63. This one also prime time. Seems like we had a lot of night games this week. Going to Clemson, Louisville at Clemson. Mr. Paisley, I probably lean Clemson. My just initial thought. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I kind of like Clemson. They're pretty legit. I think we talked about them a couple times, but no one's really talking about them, and they're quietly just in the 11th spot. I think they're better than Miami, and we'll get to that later in the year, hopefully, when they play each other in the ACC championship. But I think it's going to be a nice little coming out party for Clemson at home here. I actually took the over early in the week. It was at 60.5, now it's 63, so just trying to tell you some of the moves that are going on. This was kind of stagnant at 11 here, not really moving there. But I kind of like the over because I think Louisville's defense is really bad. I think their defense is just getting gashed. Like in that Miami game, what was it, 52-45 final? Like, I don't know if we'll see that many points, but I think Clemson's going to be having some nice success on offense. I think they're going to put up a ton of points, and then we'll just need Louisville. I like their offense, Louisville, but their defense is just getting shelled. I think their offense could put up enough points with an offensive head coach against Clemson here. So I kind of like the over a lot. And then, I would probably take Clemson minus the 11.
Yeah, Clemson losing to Georgia earlier in the year might just be a blessing in disguise for them, because you're kind of right. They are quietly kind of under the radar, but they're really good. It seems like they're getting better as the season's, of course, going on. I mean, after the first week loss to Georgia, but you don't have the media all over them. You don't have the Dabo Sweeney headlines. They're kind of just sitting there. And I mean, unless something goes horribly wrong, they're going to be in a spot to make the playoff. I mean, there's no doubt. You beat Miami, they certainly control their own destiny. I mean, obviously, you win the conference you're in. You can make an argument that even if they lose to Miami close, they could squeeze in, depending on how the rest of the country shapes up. If Georgia's comes out of the SEC, but I think Clemson's right there. I think they're really good. I think they're actually a little bit better than I thought they were going to be coming into the season. After week one, I would be a little surprised at that, just because they got blown out. But Clemson have seemed to turn things around, and they're in prime position. I would take them as well, laying 11.
Just one small thing. Again, just look back at some of these scores, but I just looked it up quick. At home, Clemson's been scoring a ton of points. I mean, this is back to week 2, but they scored 66, 59, 40, and 48 last week or 2 weeks ago against Virginia. So not the best opponents, but they're putting up points, man, at home. Got a little home cooking there, so I think the over is a nice play here.
Yeah, and that over is sitting at 63 now via DraftKings. No sponsorship, but anyway. All right, ACC also, which is just outrageous. Pittsburgh at SMU. SMU, obviously, big win last week, holding Duke on that 2-point conversion. These are two teams that they have a chance to kind of upset Clemson and Miami and win this ACC. Big game for both of them. SMU still, SMU one loss, I think, to BYU early, and then Pittsburgh's still sitting there undefeated. We haven't really talked a lot about them this year. They've kind of been quiet. We talked about them the most, I think, when they beat West Virginia, just because I was angry at how West Virginia failed to win that game. Right. But here we are. Pittsburgh, Kyle McCord just had, I think, 97 interceptions last Thursday against them and handed Pitt the game. Thank God I did not bet on that. I was so close to taking Syracuse there. And I mean, I don't know what Kyle McCord was doing. I don't know if he was just trolling me, but did not do well. Pittsburgh's defense played, lights out. SMU's playing really good. This one on the road, this one's kind of a big line, 7.5 there. But we haven't really seen a lot from Pittsburgh. I mean, we saw what they could do, but not against really any other type of good team. I mean, West Virginia's an absolute clown show down there. So Pittsburgh at SMU, huge game for ACC implications here.
Yeah, huge game here in the ACC. Pitt's a weird team. They actually do have a quarterback injury. I think he's going to play, but he's been actually really good. Transfer from Alabama, actually. If you haven't watched a lot of Pitt games, he's been really good. Not sure how effective he'll be this game. Got to monitor that a little bit, but I think that's why you're seeing it up really high. So I was pretty shocked too. I'm like, wow, 7.5. I feel like these teams
that makes sense.
Maybe like 3 points or 4, but SMU has been playing really good. Their quarterback actually did get a little dinged up too. So just monitor both quarterbacks going into this game, but I would actually take it here with Pitt plus 7.5. I'd take it up over a touchdown. I think they keep this game relatively close. I think their defense keeping them in games. I think these teams are very similar. Like I think their defenses are solid, not great. Their offenses could produce if they get going downhill. These teams could score some points. So I think these teams are very evenly matched. That's why I don't know why it's up to 7.5. But if the Pitt quarterback does not play, I think it could be a pretty big drop off because he has been the heart and soul of that offense. He's been actually very good this year. So we kind of lean Pitt in this one, but got to monitor the injuries here.
Yeah. Pittsburgh just feels like a team that could just crumble at any point. Like I just don't know how much faith I have in them to keep winning games. I mean, they have been, and I thought it was going to be last week, and obviously that didn't happen. So we'll see. We'll monitor the injuries there. I think I obviously spread 7.5. I like SMU to win this game. I don't know about the spread. I guess it really does depend on some of those injuries, but 7.5 and big game for both these teams. The winner of this is going to be right there here in the ACC at the end. I'm not sure who still has to play each other there. I don't think Pittsburgh's playing really any of them. Or SMU actually. So we'll see how that plays out. But that one Saturday night, also 8:00, will be fun to watch. All right. So biggest game of the week, Mr. Paisley, we got Ohio State coming to town at number 3 Penn State, total 45. Buckeyes slight edge, 3.5-point favorite. What are your thoughts in this one? I'll let you go first here before I give any thoughts here, as I'm a biased, of course, Penn State fan.
Yeah, thank you. So full disclosure on this game, I actually loved Penn State going into the week. Took them on Sunday night, as I like to do with some of my early lines, at 3.5. So this game kind of went up to 4, came back down to 3.5, kind of sitting there. But the more I dug into it, the more I was a little hesitant about it. I was going to make this a lock, making a big-time play, but I think we're just going to keep it at a one-unit play and not go nuts with it. I still like Penn State in the game, but as I dug into it more, I was finding some advantages for Ohio State, but I just hate Ohio State. Full disclosure, after that Oregon game, we talked about it, but I just don't think they're great at all. Watch that Nebraska game. Nebraska should have won that game outright. And now you got to go to Happy Valley, and now you're laying 3.5. I don't love that either, so I'm not advocating for Ohio State. I'll definitely stick to my Penn State pick. But if we start on the Ohio State offense, I mean, this offense is just not what it should be. Offensive line also did get banged up too. They lost their best left tackle, who was really, really good, out for the year. I think it was after the Oregon game. They just haven't been the same. Couldn't really run the ball. They have 2 great running backs, but if you can't create space and really threaten them downfield with the passing game and the quarterback, they're just going to load up the box, and they can't seem to run the ball. The wide receivers are their strength, obviously, with Smith and Mbuka, and they have a nice third receiver emerging. But I just don't like the quarterback. I don't like Will Howard. A little bit of a homecoming I saw, too. I guess he's from PA, and Penn State didn't recruit him or something. Saw that. So a little bit of motivation, but I just don't think he's any good. I really didn't like him before the year. He popped a little bit in the Oregon game, kind of kept him in it, then had that bonehead decision late. But I just think this Ohio State offense is going to struggle against the Penn State defense that I think could get after the passer a little bit. So, again, just a bad matchup, I think, for Ohio State's bad offensive line versus a Penn State defensive line. If Ohio State could run the ball and they were a good running team, I think this would be a bad matchup for Penn State. But I think Penn State's going to be just fine on the defensive side. Now, where I worry is on the other side with Penn State. I think with the quarterback uncertainty, I wish I would know who they're going to run out there. I would feel confident with both. I would like if Alar was 100%, but again, gotta deal with it now with the injuries. If he's not 100%, he looks a little banged up, and they've been off to slow starts. Are they going to get off to another slow start with him if he jogs it out there with the knee brace on? I like the backup quarterback. I think he brings a nice running element, which I think where you could attack Ohio State. I just think Ohio State's defense hasn't been that great in the past. It kind of got exposed by Oregon, but is Penn State's offense Oregon? I don't think so. Like, I think Penn State offense has really improved, really good. Now you get a little banged up, QB1. I don't think the receivers are that great for Penn State. They have 2 really talented backs. They've been getting some nice push in the run game. I think the backup quarterback would provide a lot of assistance to the running backs, and they could really run the ball. So I'd maybe like the backup quarterback to start here and just give them a full go from the onset. If they get a lead, maybe push on that run game a little bit. But I really thought I'd love Penn State in this matchup, and then kind of just dialing it back to Penn State and the under too. I think the under, I'd be a little cautious because I feel like some of these Penn State Ohio State games are high scoring in the past for some reason. Like, I feel like there is some good defensive matchups, except for last year. That was a nice under, but in years past, I feel like these games are in the upper 20s, high 30s. But I think Penn State keeps it close in the past, so I think they can cover this 3.5. Can they win outright? I don't know. I wish this game was at nighttime, as a lot of Penn State fans and you would like it to be, but I just think it's a little bit of washy. Like, there's just so much evened out in this game. So I think I'd stick with Penn State, though. Getting 3.5, it's not coming down at all, which means, they want you to take the 3.5, so that's a little dangerous. But all that considered, I'm going to roll Penn State here. It's just a nice play and a little bit on the under.
Yeah, it's nicely said. I think, obviously a big game for both teams, big game for Big Ten on the line. Ryan Day really needs to have this one, the way that things have been going there, and then you lose to Oregon when you're the favorite. A lot of people picking you to win the national championship. Just a must-win situation, it feels like, for Ohio State. For Penn State, it's weird. Normally, I would say, you need to have this win, but the way things – my expectation is not to win this game, and I think most of the year – preseason, everybody said, 11-1 gets you in the playoff. You don't have to beat Ohio State. Who cares? Every analysis that I saw preseason moving into September for Penn State, nobody had them winning this game. I mean, it's just a fact. That's just how it works, and rightly so. They haven't beaten Ohio State in the last 7 meetings. It's been 8 years since they have. And It's really just been one of those hurdles that Franklin has not been able to get over, is beating Ohio State. This does feel a little different. I mean, the spread's only 3.5. I think Penn State's playing pretty well. Obviously, you have your quarterback question marks. You don't know who you're going to roll with. I think although it's kind of not a great situation, at the same time, Ohio State's kind of sitting there like, what are we preparing for? Are we preparing for the running quarterback? Are we preparing for the standard, Drew Lar offense from September and October? So, I think, like you said, I don't really hate whatever they roll with. I'm fine with it. If Aller's not 100%, I really don't want him playing in this game. I would much rather just let Prabula go the whole way. And, if you lose, really, so be it. I mean, 11-1 gets you there. The problem with Penn State is, you stumble here, you stumble on the road in Minnesota, the season's not over, then you're out. So, if they lose this game, every game becomes a playoff game for them. On the other side, Ohio State kind of needs this win for them. I don't know. Spread's 3.5. It is home. You have game day there. You have Fox. It feels like Penn State could win, but I just have said to myself after the last couple meetings, especially last year, until they actually do win, I just can't really picture them getting this win, even though I think they are in a good spot, and that 3.5 feels so low, almost like a toss-up game. I just can't really get myself to take it. I've just seen too many times, time and time again, where Ohio State finds ways to win, even when they're playing from behind or whether they're ahead the whole time. And also Penn State, they have been able to get the running game going at times, but it's just been inconsistent. I don't love how we're so reliant on Tyler Warren. It's just what happens if something goes – if he's gone, then we're really screwed. So I just think that if Penn State plays a perfect game, maybe they could win this. But until that happens, I just think I have to go. I have to lean Ohio State, and also Ryan Day on the ropes. I mean, that's another aspect of this whole thing that hasn't been in years past. Ohio State needs this win for them. So big chance for Penn State. We'll see if they can get it done. I really hope they could prove me wrong, but until it happens, I can't picture it. I can't see it happening.
Yeah, no, fully get it from a Penn State perspective. It has been a kryptonite in the years past. I think one of the reasons was James Franklin, some of the late game decisions. So he's still on the sidelines, unfortunately. So you got to factor that also into the handicap. It's a huge – I mean, if this game's close to the end, I'm not feeling confident with Penn State, so kind of need them to get out to a lead. But and then, Ohio State's talented. That's why they're power rated so high. They're one of the top teams, on paper. But have they been playing like that? No chance. But if they start clicking all together, oh, God, yeah, they have a ton of talent. They could really make it work. So just crazy to think. Someone also mentioned, too, this is now their second big-time road game, big atmosphere. Georgia had a nice second time when they went to a big atmosphere, showed up. But I don't think Ohio State's Georgia, so I don't know. I just think this talent is absurd on Ohio State, but for some reason they're just not putting it together. And I think you got to look at Ohio State a little differently. Now, if they can get it going, you couldn't put together against Nebraska at home off of a bye, that's just a huge sign. So I think a lot of glaring holes for this Ohio State team, which is weird because of the talent level they have. But
right.
All in all, should be a fascinating matchup. Going to be the game of the week for sure.
Yeah.
There should be a good.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Nice pre-election weekend trip out to State College before we get crazy here. So it'll be fun weekend nonetheless out there. As Neil Brown says, I'll be happy just tailgating there. I'm more than happy. I don't need my team to perform well.
That's great.
Yeah, what a clown that guy is. By the way, shout out West Virginia finally getting the win against Arizona at plus. I think they were plus 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Finally gets the win. The first week I don't take them. They finally cover. So
shout out West Virginia.
Yeah. All right. Week 10 bets, Mr. Paisley. I'll let you kick it off here. If you're just listening, we give Jared and I give some picks each week here on Thursday. We release them on the page. These will likely be on our full slate of picks we release every Saturday morning on Twitter. They're the ones that we keep track of. They're the ones that you see at the beginning of the show that we recap. We keep all these records, give our percentages. We have locks every week. We'll kick it off here. Week 10, Mr. Paisley, what are some bets that you like?
Yeah, this was a little tough, at least early on. Got to do some homework. Maybe I'll come up with some more. But, I'm going to roll Penn State, keep it short and sweet. Broke it down nicely just recently here. But get it on the 3 and a hook. Might come down to a field goal at the end there. But give me Penn State, keep it close, lose by 3 or less. And maybe, I don't know if they'll win outright, but give me them plus 3.5 against Ohio State.
I hope you're right about it. I'm going to go Gators with 16.5 against Georgia. I've kind of gone back and forth on games like this. Sometimes I like laying the points like I did last week with Oregon. I just think Florida is playing good, and I just think it's too many points. I don't know if Georgia is going to be able to blow this team out. I think maybe if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said yes, but Florida seems to be putting something together there. Interesting spot. It's a neutral site game. It's a big game, really, for Florida too. I know, like their season, they want to win this game. It feels like, at least from the way they've been playing and what I've been seeing this week. So I just think it's a little too many, and I think Florida could try to keep this thing close for 2-3 quarters. I don't see them winning this game by any means, but I mean, if they could just try to keep this to 2-3 possession game before it gets out of hand, that's all I need to win. So give me Florida with 16.5.
I like it. Someone had to play. I think it's too many points as well. I like it, Case. I'm going to go to Friday night action here, so make sure you get this one in for the Friday games. Going to circle back to Tulane, who took the over with. We're going to take it again in their game against Charlotte. This is a little bit lower than 70. It's at 55.5. Obviously, we've been talking about 55 as a key, so if you try and get 55 flat, that'd be great just to give yourself a little cushion there. But I think this one's going over the total. Charlotte has also been a little sneaky over team. This is another good pairing here, back-to-back weeks. They play at a crazy pace, so they'll get a lot of plays off. If you look back at some of their recent scores, Charlotte has had some nice outbursts or has gotten scored on a ton. So we don't need them to win. We just need them to score a lot of points or give up a lot of points. And Tulane, I think their offense is humming. I mean, they are a good G5 offense to watch. I don't know if they're a great team because of their defense being a little leaky, but I think this offense has got a really good running back. They're just explosive. I mean, every time I was watching that North Texas game, it was just chunk play after chunk play. So I think Tulane's going to put up a bunch of points here against the Charlotte defense. It's not that good. And then we just need Charlotte to cover or to score a little bit of points there to get it over a kind of low total that I thought for these two teams at 55.5. So give me the over there on a Friday night game.
I like it. Little Friday night lights there. So if you're listening, hopefully you get it in. If it's Saturday and you're listening too late, we'll know if it hit or not. Hopefully we're off to a good start to the week. I'm going to go to the Big Ten action here. UCLA, Nebraska. Give me UCLA with 6.5. It was weird. I was kind of going back and forth. I was leaning kind of Nebraska, but this is just a perfect game where I think Nebraska 6.5. Give me them, lay them. UCLA sucks. I all of a sudden think UCLA now has a chance to win this game. Nebraska's been a little bit of disappointment. UCLA hasn't been good either, but I don't know. I feel like they've had flashes of offense. They've had flashes of putting things together, and Nebraska just seems kind of all over the place. And 6.5's, a lot of points. It is in Nebraska, but I think UCLA could go in there and keep it close. I think this is going to be an ugly game, low scoring. I think the total's 39.5 in this one. So 6.5 and a 39.5 point total is pretty low, and that's kind of a lot of points too. So give me UCLA to keep this thing within a possession.
Love it. I was case to putting this one on my picks case and decided to go with another team as the last pick, but I love UCLA here. I think these teams are evenly matched. So getting this 6.5, 7 points. And I think Nebraska is one of those teams that we always talk about. Good when they're getting a ton of points. Now laying points, that's just kind of not their style. And I think it's a little overinflated at how close they played Ohio State. I mean, that was almost a great win for them, but Ohio State's not what they used to be in the past. So I think this is a good spot, good number for UCLA. I like that one. I'll second that. I'm going to go to a little ACC matchup. UNC on the road at Florida State, -2.5. UNC's given. Give me UNC. I think I'm just selling Florida State. Watched that game last week against Miami, and Miami could have put up 60 if they wanted to. They settled for a ton of field goals. Florida State just has no offense. I mean, they just don't have any offense at all. The receivers can't catch. The quarterback's not great. Offensive line's not great. And then the defense is very leaky in spots and gives up a lot of points. Just a absolutely disaster of a season for the Seminoles. I mean, not a lot of people are talking about it. We talked about them earlier when they were losing, but they have one win on the season. Like, this is one of the biggest collapses from a top 10 team a year ago to now 1 or 2 wins on the year. So
right.
I think they get another one here. I think UNC's playing some good ball. If you look at their last scores, playing pretty good. Got a nice win against Virginia, blowing them out last week, who's been playing some pretty good ball as well. So give me UNC, kind of liking this team recently in recent past games here. So give me them to beat Florida State on a short number, because I just think Florida State is terrible.
I like that. And jotted my memory too from all these teams that were so good last year and where they are at this point. I mean, look at them, Michigan right there, and Washington right there. I mean, what a weird season and a lot of different drop-offs. Alabama, I mean, I know they're not near the level the others are, but they're a couple plays away from a national championship for them, and they've now, I mean, they lost to Vanderbilt, so even though Vanderbilt's a contender, of course. But all right, my final pick, I'm just going to stick with 3 here on this Thursday. I'm going A&M laying the 2.5. Paisley, opposite end here of you. It sounds like this week. I don't know. I'm believing in Texas A&M now, and I can't, even though it's not a great spot and it's a tough place, and South Carolina seems like they could get it done. I'm going to stick to my initial gut thought. The points are whatever. My thought is I just think A&M is going to win this game, so I hope they cover the 2.5. I think they will. I am going to roll with it. But yeah, I lean Texas A&M. There wasn't a ton of games I liked here, and I just think they're kind of in a good spot for them, just coming off a couple big wins. They're top of the SEC. They're playing pretty good. So yeah, let's see if they can continue to string things together. A little inconsistent, I'll take that, but I'm going to roll with them. Give me the Aggies laying 2.5 there against South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I mean, these head-to-head matchups have not been going good for me if you've been listening to the podcast a little year. So, maybe Texas A&M is the side here. But again, like we said, one of us has to be right, so we will tune in next week. Right. Pick here for the Week 10 bets. I'm going to go with our Rainbow Warriors coming back on the podcast after a couple absences, plus 13.5. If you get a 14, that'd be great. On the road at Fresno State, just a little short travel to California. But yeah, I think it's just too many points. I think Fresno was a good team in the past, had a little bit higher expectations this year, kind of fallen short a little bit. And I think Hawaii matches up pretty good against them. I think this is just too many points. I don't see Hawaii winning this game, but Hawaii's been playing some good ball recently. We had them in the money line parlay a couple weeks ago, and that's when they lost. And I think they've been covering and looking good since then. So we're going to bring them back into the show. Give me Hawaii plus the 14 covering this number at Fresno.
I like it. Anytime Hawaii's brought up, I'm happy about it. And I'm definitely going to ride that one with you. I'm going to take it. Please tell me that is a midnight game.
I don't think it is. I think the last game of the night for some reason is at 8 p.m. I think it's the SMU game. Like there's no late night games this week. Double check the schedule. But yeah, I do not think it's a midnight. I'm not sure what this might be, an earlier game, like a 6, 5, 4 o'clock. I don't know.
It's like 4 a.m. for Hawaii out there.
No. They'll be well adjusted. They'll be good.
Well, sounds good to me. So they are our Thursday here preliminary picks. Full slate will be out Saturday morning here, right here on Twitter. We'll release them. And one more final picks that we give, the Paisley Burger Parlay of the week. Me and Jared will give 2 underdogs plus odds. We hit 1 so far this year. I think now after multiple weeks here of not hitting, we're finally back below 0 units. So we really need to get a win here to go back positive. Mr. Paisley, who is your underdog of the week to get the win?
Yeah, I was bounced around a couple teams, and I just feel really confident with this team at home. We broke them down earlier, but I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies against USC. I think, like we said, tough place to play. I don't know why they're underdogs in this game. I think they should be favorites. Kind of liking this Washington team all year. But yeah, I think they're going to upset USC here in a big rivalry game, get some or I think they won it last year, not get revenge. But yeah, I think they'll get a nice win here at home, plus 114 with the outright win for the Washington Huskies.
Yeah, it is home for them, like you pointed out there. I'm also going to go Big Ten, although the original Big Ten, give me Wisconsin, plus 130. I think they're going to bounce back after kind of a weird game against Penn State last week. They are on the road here, but that's probably why they're the underdog. I think at home they win, and I'm going to take them on the road here as well. Going to Iowa, Kinnick Stadium. It is at night. Not an easy place, not an easy environment, but I don't know. Iowa's not, all that special. They're not top 25. They're not a contender this year. So I think Wisconsin finds a way to win it outright here in a low-scoring battle. Little bounce-back game for Wisconsin. I'll take them plus money, plus 130.
I like it. And also, I think Iowa might be without McNamara. I think he might be injured. So you have more of a reason going to a backup there in Iowa. So, yeah, like Wisconsin there. Love a case. What
are our parlay odds, Mr. Paisley? We have a Washington at plus 114 and Wisconsin there plus 130. If you ride this with us, we'll see what it's at.
We actually forgot to do this pre-show, but I would guess probably around 3-1, maybe around a 275, 300 parlay if I had to.
$100 will get you around probably 400 here on this one. Depends when you also get the picks. I have it here at 130. Paisley has Washington at plus 114. So that's what we will be rolling with this week. And I guess we will be back here a week from now. We have a lot to break down. We'll have to break down the big Penn State, Ohio State game. And of course, we'll be breaking down the U.S. presidential results as well in next week's show. So it should be a lot of fun.
We also got the parlay odds.
Okay, perfect.
392, even more than I thought. So
plus 392. That's perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, we will see everybody next week.
Go out and vote.